Hi, welcome to Emphathetic Conversations. Today, we are going to talk about the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is hard. It's something we all face at one point in our life. It can end relationships, it can restore relationships. So, we're going to dive right in. Now, we have a special guest. We have Elmira Lofting, and she is a masseuse. And she's going to go into forgiveness and just talk a little bit about her story and her thoughts and feelings on forgiveness. And so we just want to tap into this heart subject so we can heal each other. So welcome, Elmira. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
So tell us, what does empathy mean to you, and why do you feel it's lacking in the world?
For me, I would say that empathy is kind of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at empathy, it's different than sympathy, because a lot of times sympathy is like just feeling sorry for somebody.
Right.
Nobody wants you. Yeah, nobody wants you feeling sorry for them. They want your support. They want you to be there for them. They want you to be able to rely on them. And that's what I see empathy is. It's not knowing exactly 100% how that person's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying, hey, I'm going to be understanding of how you feel. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to say, hey, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
And that, to me, is being empathetic. And why is it lacking in the world? I think, here's what I think. I don't really think it's lacking. I think people just don't know how to communicate it. They're empathetic. They feel for other people, but they don't know what to say, or they don't know how to say it. For example, if a family member dies, they'll just say, "Oh, girl, I'm praying for you." Right. When really that person may have needed to hear something else. Yeah. Hey, I know that family member has 3 children. They might just need you to bring them a meal. Right. That's speaking, to me, it's all about not it's how it's communicated. Right. That's why we lack, it's not that we lack empathy. We don't know how to do it. We don't know how to communicate empathetically. And that's why, things like your cards help, because it helps people say, people don't know what to say. Right. They just go through life and they're just like, it's going to be all right, man, or it's going to be all right, girl. And that's not what you wanted to hear. You needed some real support.
And a lot of times they're scared, they're scared to impose when it comes to those subjects or sensitive times. And then too, it's like, you don't realize how you feel unless you're in that person's situation, So it's just a combination of different things. But that's some really interesting points you brought out. So as we talk about the subjects of forgiveness and how we can be empathetic toward forgiveness, do you think that, or do you see that forgiveness requires empathy, or our ability to forgive requires empathy?
Oh, yes, definitely, because we're not going to be drawn to forgive unless we can see some inkling of what that other person was going through that we needed to forgive. Or sometimes it's us that we needed to forgive. And if we're not even empathetic with ourselves, how can we look at that situation and say it even deserves forgiveness? Because how are you going to forgive something that you haven't analyzed, that you haven't looked at, that you haven't delved deep into and say, you know what? He was doing, because I had to do that in my own life. I had to analyze, okay, what were my parents doing at that time? Oh my gosh, my mom was like this old and she had 3 kids by, by 25. And so you're thinking, you're putting yourself in that position. You're thinking, well, when I was 25, all I was doing was sitting in an apartment, going out eat when I could. And then you start putting yourself in that other person's shoes. So you do have to have empathy to figure out, and you're like, okay, this situation does deserve forgiveness because I need to let it go. I can no longer blame so-and-so for what's going on because I've now got a clear picture of what they were going through. And they didn't even have to tell me anything. I just put the pieces together and started saying this is what was going on this way. And even just listening to them too.
Exactly. Kind of humbling ourselves, Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what about the opposite? What if we're the person who did something that requires forgiveness? How do we need some type of empathy to feel the need to ask for forgiveness?
Oh, definitely in that case too, because it goes back to what you just said. We have to humble ourselves and say, maybe I didn't do everything appropriate in this situation, and I need to go to my friend. I need to go to this person and ask for forgiveness. Because if we're not empathetic, we can just go on with life and thinking, we done hurt all these people and we done passed them by, dumped them in trash and all this stuff. We can't do that. We have to realize that our actions are affecting people, no matter how small they may be. Just one simple thing with me. I moved here to Nashville 8 years ago. That one action has affected my family because I'm the only one away. So they're thinking, well, when is she coming back home? When is she doing? So I have to also think about how do they feel when I don't go back for, I go back like every 2 months or whatever. And so I have to think about those things and consider somebody else's feelings about my actions too. So it definitely requires empathy when I need to ask for forgiveness as well, because I wouldn't know that I did anything wrong or even had an inkling or a thought. I'm just going on about my life. And
Exactly. That's some beautiful points there. So with all of that in consideration, why is it still a challenge to forgive someone or ask for forgiveness? It's hard to say which is greater. It just depends on which situation you are in. They can be equally great, but why is it such a struggle, a challenge?
It's a challenge because you've been hurt. So and that's been my personal thing. When our hurt or our feelings outweigh what needs to be forgiven, we want to wallow in the hurt. We want to wallow in the depression, the despair, or whatever's going on. And it's fear as well. All of those feelings manifest and they maximize themselves. And we just want to feel that as opposed to forgiveness. Because when you forgive, you got to let it go. Sometimes it's more comfortable to hold on to it because you can hold on and say, oh, this is why I'm the way I am because I'm mad at my mama and my daddy, or this is the way I am because my ex-boyfriend did this and he's going to pay. He's just going to pay. So I just want to hold on. It's easier to hold on to it because when we have to let it go, we literally have to let it go and we have to move on to a new space in life. And that new space can be scary because the old space is comfortable.
Exactly.
I don't think the new space is scary and the old space is comfortable. And it can be uncomfortable to forgive because you don't know either way it goes. Like you said, if I'm forgiving you or you're forgiving me, it's a scary situation because it's a tough conversation. But it's a conversation that needs to be had because I bet both parties have been thinking the same thing. And most times that's what it is. There needed to be forgiving happen. And that's what, when you even think about the word forgiveness, it's about giving.
Right.
It's about giving something of yourself. Releasing is a form of giving too. Releasing the hurt, opening up your heart, giving. It's hard because we don't want to let go of the past. We just don't.
To add to that about letting go, someone gave me an illustration a long time ago. They said it's like sticking a knife in your heart and pulling it out and putting it back in, pulling it out and putting it back in. When you can't forgive someone, it's like you're constantly stabbing yourself over and over because you reliving that pain. You're not able to really let go. So you're hurting yourself more than the other person because you're, constantly reliving that pain.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's a great analogy with the stick, and that's literally what you're doing day by day, second by second, hour by hour, just stabbing in, out, just going through, because all those thoughts go through your mind, and then you're doing the in, the out, the in, the out. It's too much. It really is too much.
It is. So tell us, so since we talked a lot about everyone else in the world and their challenge with forgiveness, do you have a personal story of your journey in forgiveness?
I do. I mentioned earlier, I kind of alluded to it earlier. My mom and dad split when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't know exactly when. I don't even know all the details of the story to tell you the truth. But needless to say, he was not in the home with us ever since I was about 6. Mm-hmm. And growing up, as like a teenager and in college, I used to be angry and mad about that because I'm like, why couldn't he be here? Why didn't he come to my high school graduation? He didn't come to this. He didn't do that. And I'm a lot like my dad. Anyway, I stayed in, we all stayed in touch with him and letters and all that, talked to him on the phone, but he wasn't there. So I was mad. I was just pissed. I was angry. I'm like, why would you be here? So this is what happened though. Mm-hmm. After I finished massage school, I told myself I need to release that and I need to do something before I start touching these bodies, before I go step into this career. I consulted with a life coach, and his name is Enrique Pascal, and this was in Virginia. And in talking to him, that life coach instructed me, he said, you need to write a letter to your dad. You need to outline all the things you wish he did, all the things you're glad he did. I mean, it was a big list. And so that was my mode of forgiving. On one of my trips to visit my dad, I presented it to him, and that's how we, restored our relationship. Oh, wow. And and it even got better once I moved here, because I would, when I would go back to Virginia, I would make a trip to visit him at least once a year. Because it's 2 different locations in Virginia. My mom lives like in the Richmond area, and he was down in the Norfolk area. Okay. So I rekindled and restored that relationship. And I had to do it, and it was more meaningful because as of December 27th of last year, he passed. He was found in his car, got the phone call, did sudden, But if I had not forgiven and we hadn't had the conversations that we did, and I didn't know, all the details about what he planned for us as children, that would have been lost. I could have been still sitting there wallowing in anger and pain and disgust. He should have did this. I let all that stuff go. I don't care what him and my mom did because I have to have the relationship with them.
Yeah.
And that's my personal story, because I wouldn't have been able to, and I spoke at the funeral because I was asked, I I knew what to say, and I outlined, that was one of the things I outlined. I went over 4 F's. I don't remember them all. I did faith, food, family, and forgiveness. That's what it was. Things I learned from my dad. Okay. And it was because of forgiveness that I was able to do that.
Wow.
And people were coming up after, the service at the church. Oh, that was so wonderful. It blessed my heart. And I can't believe you did that. And but it goes to show what we can do when we make healing a part of our lives. We have to make it, has to be an action. We can't just
priority as well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful story. It just got me to thinking a lot of times we don't have a chance to write that letter and present it to the person because the person may have passed away, but we never got a chance to get closure with that forgiveness. We never got a chance to ask for forgiveness or talk to them about your hurt so that, it can be reciprocated, So in those cases, what do you recommend? Like, how do you heal when there's no more contact with the person to get closure in that forgiveness?
I say you still have to write it down if it's in your, because I've had to do this just with other situations. It could be a guy I used to date or something. When I write something down in my journal, it releases it for me. I'm still able to either ask for forgiveness or forgive that other person because I started and there was another, matter of fact, she's a client of me. She's another life coach. She told me this: in order to get answers, for a person who's deceased, it doesn't even have to be a person who's deceased. You have to ask questions. So when I write stuff down, I may say, why do I need to forgive Joe? I'm just giving Joe a name, and then you describe it. Joe did this. I'm sorry I never got to say this to Joe. And you just kind of go through stream of consciousness and start writing everything you wanted to say because it releases it. And when you take that from your heart to your hand, it just sends it out and you pray over that thing and it's done. And it may not happen immediately, but you're going to feel the release of whatever it was you were feeling.
Right.
And you didn't let go.
Yeah.
You may have this regret because you can't hold on to the regret. You got to release it in some way.
Yeah. And our society doesn't teach us that. Our society teaches when we have a situation, we just cut that person off or we just sever that from our life and not deal with it, and just keep it moving or put a Band-Aid over it. We're not taught to take the time to deal with it. There's this stigma that if we take the time to, I guess, give time to it, then we're dwelling on it too much or we're putting negativity in our life when that's not truly the case, because taking time to heal doesn't mean you're harboring on this negativity. You're just analyzing it so that you can let it go, But do you agree with that?
Yeah, because our society does teach us to just block people or just say, hey, let them go. You don't need them anymore. But we can't just, because how are we going to face situations head on? How are we going to not live in resentment? Because when we don't have those tough conversations or say what needs to be said, how does that person even know?
Right.
You didn't tell them.
Yeah.
You're assuming, oh, they knew they hurt me. Yeah. How?
Right.
Did you tell them? Right. Oh, no, they should have known because I acted this way because I slammed the door. And what did you tell? Did you communicate? I had to block them because they kept calling me at night. why don't you just tell them, please don't call me? And I actually, this brings up another, it's not about forgiveness, but it's the story about what you just described. My landlord has little dogs that I used to watch, and I used to watch them for free. And then for a year, I didn't watch the dogs. And then after that year, she asked me to watch the dogs again. I said, you know what? My time is valuable. I have to tell her that I need to be compensated if I'm going to watch the dogs. That said, because I spoke in the truth, and this time I didn't want to do it for free, that opened up a big can of worms. But it was good, because if I would have because I was almost not going to say that I needed to be paid. But because it bothered me, and when something bothers me and I know that's what I need to say, I know it needs to be said. And once I said that, it was off the rocker, because she was like, I can't believe that you would do this. We're supposed to be friends. And I'm like, no, you're my landlord. We're not. But it goes to show you that there's an expectation on people's part that you should do something, or because you did this in the past, we have to communicate openly and let people know what's going on. Right. And not just cut them off. Tell them why. I had to tell a guy, okay, I'm not going to date you and talking to you no more. Cause just little stuff. You was looking under the table for gum during the date, and just dumb stuff. I'm like, this is like, yeah, I mean, but we can't let opportunities for healing and growth to pass us by, especially if we know we can be the one to fix or repair the relationship.
Right. Very good points. Very good points. Well, we've learned a lot today. We've learned that we need humility. We've learned that we need to write things down, regardless if the person is alive and we can't actually give them this letter. And one point about a letter, the reason why letters are so important is because when a person reads a letter, they can't interrupt you. They're reading, it's a constant. And then they can read it when they're in the mood to, you're not bothering them. Also, communication. We have to communicate the issue. We won't know that we've hurt someone unless they tell us. It's a back and forth communication. So those are some steps to forgiveness. So now tell us, Elmira, what are you currently passionate about, and how can we support you?
Well, I'm currently passionate about this massage and literally helping business owners be a self-care boss. Okay. And I do that at Couture Massage, and everything is customized. And the reason why I do that, I find that business owners neglect their health to take care of the business. Or we don't see how us taking care of the business is affecting our health. Leading to headaches, back pain, whatever. Because you stayed up all night working on the project to get ready for the vendor fair and present for the investors and all of this stuff. So I am completely passionate about that. How you can support me, one thing you can do is come out to the Selfish event, which is taking place on July the 28th in Nashville. Is going to be at Venue 109. This is an event put on by Mo Scrubs. You probably know Toya, so
we love Toya.
Yeah, exactly. You know what she does, and I will be there, of course, doing massages and have some of my other self-care items. And you're welcome to come see me for a massage outside of that.
But it's a very exciting event, self-care, so needed. So definitely save that date. Yeah. Well, thank you again for taking time out to share your heart with us. And hopefully everything that you've said and we've conversed about will help heal someone else. So that ends our session today. And if anyone else out there is going through a situation, or there's something that's near and dear to your heart that requires empathy, or you want the world to know about it so they can be more empathetic to others in that same situation, well, email me at granniesconversations@gmail.com, or you can inbox me on Instagram, or DM me on inbox me on Facebook, or DM me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to get with you so we can interview you as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elmira, for spending time with us today. And that ends our session.